Today, J.Lo canceled her North American tour. There have been reports of slow ticket sales.
If her last album had done well, she would still be with her record label. And as of now, there is no other record label coming to snap her up.
In recent months, the name Jennifer Lopez has been everywhere again, but not for the reasons she expected. What was supposed to be her big return to stardom turned into a storm of criticism, mockery, and failures. Her new album, her tour, her movie, and even a documentary she financed herself were all torn apart by the press and abandoned by the public. The so-called Diva of the Bronx wanted to re-establish herself as the Latin queen of pop. But what she got was something very different. A heated debate about her real talent, her alleged plagiarism, her diva behavior, and even old accusations that have come back to haunt her. And here arises the big question. How did Jennifer Lopez go from being a global icon, admired around the world, to becoming one of the most questioned and rejected celebrities of 2025? The story is darker than you imagine. When Jennifer Lopez announced her new album, This Is Me Now, she presented it as the continuation of that iconic 2002 record that marked her relationship with Ben Affleck. It seemed like the perfect plan, a nostalgia-filled comeback, with music designed to revive the golden era of J.Lo, and at the same time prove she could still be relevant in the industry. But reality struck hard. Her lead single barely reached number 38 on Billboard, far from the number one she once dominated in the 2000s. And if that was already disappointing, what came after was worse. The tour she had announced across the United States and Canada began to crumble even before it started. Tickets were extremely expensive, and the ultimate insult was the meet and greet price. Almost $8,000 just to greet her for a few seconds. The public's reaction was immediate. Low sales, unsold tickets, and canceled dates. To try to save the tour, J.Lo had to backtrack and change the whole concept. Instead of focusing on the new album, she rebranded it as a greatest hits tour, relying on nostalgia to draw the audience in. But the final straw was her audio-visual projects. Not only did she release the album, she also premiered a movie and a documentary around the same story. And both were slaughtered by critics. The documentary, which aimed to show the greatest love story ever told, ended up being seen as an ode to her own ego. And the musical film, based on her relationship with Ben Affleck, was labeled one of the worst productions of the year. Plotless, boring, and forced. What was supposed to be J.Lo's rebirth ended up being an exhibition of disconnection from reality. And while the media talked about her downfall, an old ghost began to resurface. The suspicion that her entire career had been built on a foundation of lies. Because the biggest blow was not the failure of an album. It was the reminder that from the beginning, Jennifer Lopez was always seen as a manufactured product. For years, many critics have described her as a plastic artist. A product designed more by record labels and marketing than by genuine talent. Her jump into music was neither natural nor organic. J.Lo was an actress, and her big break came when she played Selena Quintanilla in 1997. The role catapulted her to fame, but also planted the idea of becoming a singer. Inspired by the character, she decided to launch herself as a music artist, though she had no real experience in the industry. Here appears the first key piece, Sean Diddy Combs, her partner at the time. Thanks to him, Jennifer started moving in the most powerful circles of music. It was Diddy who introduced her to the world of hip-hop and who connected her with Medina, the man who would become her lifelong manager. And then came the master move, Tommy Mottola, president of Sony Music and ex-husband of Mariah Carey. In the middle of his divorce from Carey, Mottola was seeking revenge, someone who could compete with her on the charts and, above all, wound her pride. That someone was Jennifer Lopez. With the full backing of the label, she released On the 6 in 1999, her debut album. And its success was no accident. Behind it were millions in promotion, strategic connections, and a machine designed to manufacture a new star. The problem is that, unlike other artists who won audiences with their voices, their styles, or their authenticity, J.Lo was seen from the start as a project built in a marketing lab. A pretty face with commercial potential rather than a singer with real essence. That perception, the manufactured product, never left her. And ironically, many of the scandals that followed only confirmed the idea that J.Lo didn't achieve success on her own, but by stepping over others and using anyone as a stepping stone. And nothing illustrates that darker side better than the serious accusations that came back to haunt her more than 20 years later. If something has haunted Jennifer Lopez since the beginning of her career, it's the shadows of her personal relationships. And the most controversial of all was, without a doubt, her romance with Sean Diddy Combs in the late 90s. In December 1999, both were arrested after a shooting at a Manhattan nightclub. 3 people were injured, and accusations pointed directly at Diddy as the one who fired. But the scandal didn't end there. Recent court reports claim that it was Jennifer Lopez who brought the weapon inside and handed it to Diddy before the incident. At the time, she was released immediately and never spent a day in jail. Diddy also escaped conviction. The case faded with time, but in 2024 it returned to headlines when the main victim, Natasha Ramos, reopened the lawsuit nearly 25 years later demanding justice. The most serious part is not only the accusation itself, but what it represents. The image of an artist willing to do anything to achieve fame. Because right after that episode, Jennifer Lopez's career took off like never before, thanks to her connections with Diddy and the support of Medina and Tommy Mottola. The press began to paint a disturbing portrait. J.Lo was not the humble Bronx girl she sold in interviews, but someone capable of getting involved in dangerous situations and using her relationships as a springboard. Episodes like this left a stain on her image that never fully disappeared. And although many fans preferred to forget, the memory always lingered, waiting for the moment to resurface. And if the doubt about her integrity was already enormous, another even more explosive question arose. Did she really have the talent to be a singer? Since she began her music career, one question has constantly haunted Jennifer Lopez. Does she really know how to sing? The debate began with her portrayal of Selena in the 1997 movie. Although the role catapulted her to stardom, the truth is that in the musical scenes it wasn't her voice we heard. J.Lo only lip-synced over Selena's original recordings. And that was the first sign that her vocal talent might not have been at the level the public believed. Over the years, that suspicion was confirmed. Live performances where her voice cracked, viral off-key clips on YouTube, and an excessive use of auto-tune led many critics to label her as one of the artists who most depends on studio production. The funny thing is that, despite the mockery and video evidence, Jennifer even became a judge on shows like American Idol, evaluating other singers when she herself could not sustain a song without digital support. Of course, J.Lo's business was never her voice. She knew how to compensate with her image. Spectacular dances, strong stage presence, and impeccable marketing. That combination kept her at the top for years, even if many fans and experts agreed on one thing. Jennifer Lopez wasn't there because of her vocal talent, but because of her ability to sell herself as a complete product. Jennifer Lopez's weak voice was not her only problem. With time, much more serious accusations surfaced, that some of her most famous songs weren't even sung by her, but by other artists who never received credit. And that revelation opened a Pandora's box that still haunts her. If her vocal talent was already in doubt, what came afterward completely destroyed her credibility. Jennifer Lopez may have built much of her success with other people's voices and songs. One of the most infamous cases is with Mariah Carey. While working on her album Glitter, Mariah had planned to use a sample of the song Firecracker for her track Loverboy. But before she could release it, Jennifer Lopez dropped I'm Real, using exactly the same sample. Behind the move was Tommy Mottola, Mariah's ex-husband and then president of Sony, who allegedly sabotaged his ex-wife by giving the material to J.Lo first. From then on, the feud between the two became inevitable, and Mariah has never hidden her disdain. When asked about Jennifer, she responds with her iconic, "I don't know her." But that was only the tip of the iceberg. Decades later, artists like Natasha Ramos claimed their voices were used in J.Lo's songs without any credit. The most blatant example, Jenny from the Block. Part of the backing vocals that made the track famous weren't Jennifer's but Natasha's. And not just in that song. Fragments have been found in several tracks where the main voice belongs to anonymous backup singers, while J.Lo's voice was barely layered over in the final mix. The pattern repeats in other hits. If You Had My Love is almost identical to If I Gave You Love by Shantae Moore. Waiting for Tonight already existed, sung by the group Third Party, and J.Lo's version simply added her voice. Get Right bore a suspicious resemblance to an unreleased song by Usher and even to One Thing by Amory. Critics were merciless. J.Lo not only had a questionable voice, she also appropriated songs and vocals from others to keep building her music empire. And as if that wasn't enough, Mariah Carey herself threw a devastating jab. If someone else sang your songs for you, of course you'd get to sleep 8 hours a night too. With these revelations, Jennifer's image as a self-made star crumbled. Every success seemed to have a shady origin, a hidden credit, or a shadow of plagiarism. And on top of that, the public couldn't ignore her reputation for arrogance and the enemies she collected in the industry. Throughout her career, Jennifer Lopez not only stacked hits, she also collected a long list of enemies and testimonies painting her as difficult, arrogant, even rude. Former collaborators and people who worked close to her revealed that J.Lo imposed bizarre rules, that no one look her directly in the eyes, that all communication go through her assistant, and that she not be disturbed off stage. That behavior reinforced the perception that she lived in a diva bubble, detached from reality. But what stood out most was the way she spoke about other celebrities. In interviews, Jennifer made derogatory remarks about colleagues. She said Salma Hayek was just a sex symbol, while she herself was more versatile. She called Cameron Diaz a lucky model. She claimed Gwyneth Paltrow was more famous for dating Brad Pitt than for her talent. She even questioned Madonna's ability as an actress and Winona Ryder's as a performer. The irony is that many of those insults describe exactly what critics say about her. A pretty face, more famous for romances than for talent, and successful thanks to luck and marketing rather than her voice. That superior attitude, combined with her reputation for being difficult on set and in dealing with the public, began to cost her. In the industry, no one forgets who mistreats others. And although she managed for years to maintain the image of a flawless star, over time her own arrogance became her biggest enemy. That enemy became even more evident when she tried to sell herself as the humble Bronx girl. And the Bronx itself denied it. In 2002, Jennifer Lopez released one of her biggest hits, Jenny from the Block. The song repeated again and again that despite the fame and jewels, she was still the girl from the neighborhood, the humble Bronx girl who never forgot where she came from. The problem was that, for those who truly grew up there, it was all a show. Neighbors and local media began denouncing that Jennifer never came back to help her community. On the contrary, she showed up with luxury cars and cameras to film videos or take pictures, then disappeared without ever connecting with the people. Back in 2002, the New York Post published a scathing article titled Jenny Who, where Bronx residents claimed they didn't recognize her as one of their own. They recalled how her bodyguards pushed away kids who tried to greet her, and even how when her old school asked her to fund a basketball court, the promise never came through. The same happened years later during the pandemic. Her old school asked for scholarships so students wouldn't drop out for lack of money, but the help never arrived. All of this contrasted with other artists like Cardi B, who has actively supported her neighborhood with donations and visits. The contrast was clear. J.Lo used the Bronx as a marketing strategy, as a stamp of authenticity to sell her career, but never gave back to the community she claimed to represent. And the irony is that in her own 2024 documentary, Jennifer once again talked about her Bronx roots, only to become the target of TikTok parodies, where thousands mocked her lack of authenticity. Because in the end, if you don't have dazzling vocal talent or authenticity in your story, all you have left is your image. And in 2024, that image collapsed like a house of cards. If anything became clear in 2024, it was that Jennifer Lopez's career was sustained by a facade too fragile. And just one wrong move was enough for everything to come crashing down. Her album This Is Me Now could have gone unnoticed, just another record. The result was catastrophic. The film was destroyed by critics, branded boring, plotless, and egocentric. The documentary, instead of bringing her closer to the public, pushed them away even more. It showed a Jennifer obsessed with her own story, ignoring the warnings of those around her, including Ben Affleck himself, that the project had no future. The most shocking part is that no studio wanted to finance it. Jennifer invested around $20 million of her own money, convinced it would be a hit. But today, that investment seems lost. And while specialized media tore apart her projects, on social media all her ghosts came back. Her alleged plagiarisms, the borrowed voices, the old accusations with Diddy, her feuds with other celebrities, and the fake Jenny from the Block story. Everything resurfaced at the same time, turning her comeback into a public trial of her entire career. What Jennifer thought would be her coronation as the great returning diva ended up being the confirmation of what many suspected, that her fame was always a house of cards. And when the wind changed, that house collapsed for all to see. The inevitable question now is, after so many setbacks, will Jennifer Lopez be able to reinvent herself once again? Or are we witnessing the beginning of the end of her legacy? And so, the story of the humble Jenny from the Bronx collapsed before millions of people who no longer see an untouchable star, but a celebrity disconnected from reality. Do you think Jennifer Lopez still deserves another chance to shine, or has her time at the top already ended forever? Leave it in the comments.